I should have known that a flight to Hawaii for $150 is too good to be true. Part 6. I look out the window of the cockpit and everything starts to sink in just what a horrible state of affairs that I'm currently in, where I'm in an airplane 12,000 feet in the sky with no pilot. Also, there are 3 guys who are drugging people and doing God knows what to them upstairs, on the upper deck. On top of countless passengers who were given the conscious sedation, without any type of monitoring for their safety. Danica, this is Georgetown Tower Alpha, can you hear me? I look at the radio, as I'm trying to decide if I really want to bother with what the air traffic controller has to say. I hit my tipping point with life and I don't want to stay buckled into this pilot's chair anymore. This plane ride was supposed to lead me to an escape from my melancholy life and my $16 an hour underappreciated job. As I sit in the pilot's chair, everything seems to hit me, where I'm tired of thinking about the different phases of my life and the horrid experiences that surrounds each of them. If it wasn't my elementary school best friend, who ditched me in middle school, or my high school boyfriend, who was interested in sleeping with everyone else but me, or my so-called science class buddy in college, who had her redneck guy friends leave me naked in a field to die. I'm just tired of everything and everyone in general, to include the 3 guys that are beyond the cockpit doors. The heavy turbulence turned a bottle of water into a projectile, that narrowly missed my face 3 or 4 times. I pick up the bottle and take a large gulp of water, as I've been thirsty for a long time. I finally decide that I don't want to sit in the cockpit anymore and have orders barked at me from the air traffic controller. I'm more interested to see what condition my 3 flight attendant friends are in, than sitting in this cockpit. I open the cockpit door and I immediately see Jeff on the floor facing away from me. I can see that his back is moving up and down, so I know he's still alive and breathing. I don't hear any worrisome sounds coming from the cabin, so I slowly go from row to row checking on each passenger to make sure that they're okay. As I go down the aisle, I see that most of the passengers are still sedated and they all look like they're breathing. I see Keith at the rear of the plane on the ground with his eyes closed. I really don't want to get close to him. I figure that he must have got knocked out like Jeff, from being tossed around, like being in a blender. I don't see Rory, as I suspect he must have locked himself inside the bathroom and suffered the same fate as Keith and Jeff. The thought of not seeing Rory makes me feel really uneasy. I feel like he could jump out at me at any moment and attack me. I slowly make my way back to the front of the plane to go up the stairs to the upper deck. I constantly look back and forth to see if Rory or anyone else is going to jump out at me. I get to the bottom of the upper deck stairs, that goes straight up. I gently walk up the stairs to make less noise, as I also don't know what awaits me upstairs. I make it up the stairs and I'm surprised that everything seems quiet and the upper deck almost mirrors the downstairs, minus the cockpit. I see people, at the far end of the upper deck, who are sitting motionless in their chairs. I walk towards the back of the plane and about 20 rows in, I see a briefcase laying on the floor in the middle of the aisle. I open the briefcase and I see metal instruments that kind of resemble tools that a mechanical engineer would use, besides a couple of the instruments, that are odd shaped and are throwing me off to what function they might serve. In particular, the one that is a long skinny metal spike with a wooden handle. I pick up the spike with the wooden handle and I see etched into the metal, a snake wrapped around a branch, which is the universal sign that it is a medical related instrument. There is also the word Deutschland etched into the instrument. I already know something beyond criminal is going on this plane as a whole, but the German instruments have me a bit lost. I carry the briefcase with the instruments to the back of the plane and I immediately see the bridesmaid, the bride-to-be, and Joshua all buckled into their chairs. The 2 females' eyes seem to be swollen and they both seem to be more sedated than they were downstairs. Joshua seems to have been beating to a pulp, but at least he is still alive. Joshua also seems to be more out of it as well than when he was sedated downstairs. I kind of let off a sigh of relief just knowing that the 3 of them are still alive. Especially Joshua, who I was convinced was dead related to retaliation for Ivan's death. My mind digests the 3 of them as an additional person catches my attention, who doesn't come across as a threat because of his advanced age. The additional person is a shorter older man, who is buckled into the aisle seat of the last row on the right-hand side of the plane. He looks to be well into his 80s or 90s and is definitely some kind of scholarly type in just the way how he presents himself. He's wearing a white button-down shirt with a red necktie and a beige sports blazer, to go along with wool pants. He doesn't seem to be alarmed by seeing me, as it's almost like he doesn't care. He also doesn't seem to be sedated and has no visible marks on his face. "Who are you?" I ask. "I am a doctor," he replies with a thick German accent. He has an air of confidence about himself. That tells me that he's used to being in charge. "What are you doing on this plane?" I was hired to render my services. What services do you render? I get paid $500 per patient to correct them. Everyone on this plane looked fine when we all boarded together, so what are you correcting? Then instead of giving me a simple answer, he goes into a spiel. I work in the realm of mental health, where I started as a young apprentice in the mental institutions of Germany in 1940. Before antipsychotic medicines were developed, we were performing procedures to help correct people's undesired behaviors. Then when the Führer came into full power, all the patients we dealt with were considered no longer worth the effort and they all just disappeared. After the war, I immigrated to Canada, where I continued to perform the procedures that I learned as an apprentice in Germany. What are these instruments in this briefcase and what procedures are you talking about? Those instruments are used for my non-medicinal behavior adjustments. What? I respond, as I'm starting to catch on that nothing is going to sound good that comes out of his mouth. Those 3 people over there will recover in next to no time at all, then they'll be obedient for the rest of their lives. He responds. Obedient? What did you do to them? I molded them into being good followers. Did you perform a lobotomy on them? I asked, as the anger spews through my veins. In layman terms, you can say that. I go blank as I continually repeat to myself the words in layman's terms, as the anger consumes me. The anger forces me to have a flashback, as I remember back in college, when I was walking back to the college campus completely naked, where I felt so ashamed. I remember crying, because I felt so alone after experiencing that horrible ordeal. As I walked back to the campus, I couldn't stop thinking not only about the events that had just unfolded, but the loneliness I felt in middle school when my best friend ditched me and when my high school boyfriend made me feel that I wasn't good enough. With these angry thoughts rushing through my head, I manhandle the briefcase and open it up. I'm about to make $500. I say, as I take out the ice pick looking instrument and I stab the doctor in his neck. The doctor starts to gargle up blood and I say to him, just fucking die. I get a sense of euphoria from killing him. Almost like the biggest weight has been lifted off my shoulders and I'm floating on clouds. All those negative thoughts that I was experiencing, dating back to my childhood, have seemed to go away. I slowly slip out of my euphoric mindset as I observe him slouched forward in his chair. I look over and see the other 3, who are semi-unconscious in a complete daze, sitting in their respective chairs. Unlike the conscious sedation, where the passengers downstairs will eventually return to their old selves, the lobotomies are irreversible. It's quite clear that the intent of this flight was to make slaves out of the attractive passengers, and I'm guessing the intent is to sell the passengers, but to who, I have no idea. I don't feel like a warrior after killing that old German doctor. I feel more or less empty after the euphoric feeling completely subsides. This trip was supposed to help me cope with life, however it's doing nothing more than proving what a dark, ugly world it is that I live in. Everything and anything is corrupt and evil, with some things being more so than others. The clothes I'm wearing were made in some third world country for penny wages. The hamburger I had last night was from some poor cow that lived its miserable shortened life only to be eaten. I just want to go somewhere and be completely left alone. Almost like a Gilligan's Island, where I could just live off of sea mussels and never have to see anyone again. Unfortunately, a place like that doesn't exist on my $16 an hour job, so I will have to settle on seeking my endless amount of revenge on the people that have tried to harm me. I want to experience that sense of euphoria again, that I felt after killing that German butcher. I can't do anything to help the 3 passengers on the upper deck, so my mind focuses on the 3 flight attendants and the 1 pilot downstairs.